Hello, everyone. My name is Isaiah Jenkins. I am the Senior Manager of Programming and Employee Engagement at Comcast NBC Universal. I'm excited to be here today at the Startup Grinds Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Summit to tell you a little bit about Lift Labs and introduce our extraordinary panel. Lift Labs was created with input from more than 1,500 entrepreneurs from around the world. Our programming helps startups understand our business, test and pilot things with us, and become better storytellers. We offer mentorship and support from our elite network of entrepreneurs and business leaders to help founders at every stage of their business and take them to the next level. Today, our incredible panel of founders will have an in-depth conversation about the real-life experiences, including challenges seeking capital to grow their startups. They'll talk about navigating unconscious biases, funders struggling to understand their vision, and even the difficult decision to walk away from funds that don't. They'll also give an honest and direct advice on identifying suitable sources of capital and partnerships for your business. After a quick video, please help me in joining the panel as we welcome Kishau Rogers, founder and CEO of Time Study, Michael Maponga, founder and CEO of AfroLandTV, and Sylvester Mobley, founder and CEO of Coded by Kids. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
Startups are building the future with Comcast NBC Universal. Our startup engagement team searches the world for promising founders who build connectivity, media, entertainment, and sports technologies that will break barriers and reshape industries. We offer expert-led workshops, live events, and mentorship programs for startups at every stage. This includes our world-class accelerators based in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and year-round business development opportunities for enterprise-ready companies. Lift Labs is where founders get access to experts, partners, and platforms that shape and amplify their innovations. Sports Tech delivers partnerships to help develop the next generation of founders changing the world of competitive sports. No matter where you are in your journey, connect with Comcast NBC Universal to elevate the future of your startup.
Hey, I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's discussion. We're excited to bring a both important but also very nuanced conversation to the forefront. And we want to be able to give everyone as takeaways just some tangible tactics to help them navigate the often challenging and difficult under the most ideal circumstances undertaking of raising capital. I'm Sylvester Mobley, and I am extremely excited to have the opportunity to serve as your moderator for this conversation. Just a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of Coded by Kids. We are a tech and innovation education organization. So we focus on preparing underrepresented young people for leadership positions in tech with a lens to preparing them to start venture capital-backed startups. I have been in tech since 2001, so I have 20 years of tech experience in a variety of roles. And I am also now the co-managing partner of Plainsight Capital. Plainsight Capital is an early stage venture capital fund investing in tech and tech-driven startups led by underrepresented founders. Before we get started, I want to make sure that I thank our partners, Comcast NBC Universal and Comcast Lift Labs, for helping bring us here today, bring all this together. As Isaiah mentioned, Lift Labs supports founders at all stages and often partners with organizations across the global startup ecosystem like Startup Grind. The Lift Labs team engages with founders from around the world and is a valuable partner in many startup communities, especially in Philadelphia, which is my hometown, and where my companies are based. Before we get started, I want to take a few minutes to introduce our panelists who have a very impressive list of accomplishments. First, we have Kishau Rogers, CEO of Time Study. She's a technology entrepreneur using computer science, systems thinking, and common sense to create intelligent, human-centered solutions. As the founder and CEO of Time Study, Kishau is one of the first Black women in the state of Virginia to raise millions in venture capital to scale her tech startup. Next, we also have Michael Maponga, CEO of AfroLandTV. The actor turned entrepreneur is the co-founder of AfroLandTV, a streaming service with hundreds of hours of free programming created by film and TV creators in Africa and its diaspora, including Nollywood, the Hollywood of Nigeria. AfroLandTV, an alum of the Comcast NBC Universal Techstars Lift Labs Accelerator, powered by Techstars, recently announced a partnership with Zumo that brings its feature films to the platform's 24 million monthly active users. AfroLandTV will have its own section on Zumo under the Black Cinema category, and content is available to stream anytime. It's just the latest content sharing partnership for AfroLandTV, which is also available on X1, Xfinity, Flex, Local Now, Plex, Vizio, Watch Free Plus, Rakuten TV, and Huawei Video. All right, so we're getting ready to kick off this discussion, and I'm going to start with just a few data points to provide some context and set the stage for the conversation. As many people have heard, we have experts representing several sectors here, but we've all had to face parallel obstacles when it comes to being a part of a group that's historically excluded from significant capital. When it comes to securing venture capital, Black and Latinx business owners still remain far behind their white counterparts. A recent Crunchbase study reports that Black and Latinx founders receive less than 3% of venture capital funding in 2020. And since 2015 have represented just 2.4% of the total venture capital funding raised. So let's dive in. Funding for underrepresented founders in the US hit nearly 1.8 billion in the first half of 2021, a fourfold increase from the previous year. But most venture-backed startups are still overwhelmingly white, male, Ivy League educated, and based in Silicon Valley. And this is according to a study conducted by Rate My Investor and Diversity VC. However, some trends still suggest that a great majority of traditional venture investors are investing in late-stage founders instead of early or even pre-seed stages. So this begs the question for minority founders who don't have family, friends, or connections to lean on for the first $250,000. So as a investor, I'm going to speak to, even as a venture capital investor, I see most investors who go later stage, in large part because of the risk. As an investor, all of your risk is in the early stage. The later you go, the less risk there is, but that does leave a significant gap in the space if you are an underrepresented founder, if you are a Black and brown founder, who you're not coming from a background where you have access to networks of friends and family or angels that can provide you with that initial capital. So there has to be solutions. There has to be people that are willing to fill that gap and enter that space to ensure that highly talented founders that have a ton of potential are able to move forward and find success, and their companies aren't dying on the vine simply because they lack access to networks. So I'm going to use that as the framing for the conversation today. And I'm going to start with a question that's open to anyone who wants to jump in. Just talking about and thinking about your journey and raising capital and getting to the point that you're at now, are there things the more experienced you would tell to you at the start of your journey to avoid? during those early days raising capital? I know there's things I would tell myself to avoid or do differently, and I would love to hear from both of you what those things are for you.
Yeah, I have a list. I won't name them all because I don't think we have time. I have a list of things that I would avoid. Honestly, I think to your point about founders that have tons of potential, I actually think that's one of the areas where there's an opportunity to shift how underrepresented founders are supported. How do we define tons of potential? So one of the things that I encountered was this uphill battle against the pattern of a successful founder. So there's certain patterns, there are logos, there's where you live. There's so many things that are against a lot of underrepresented founders. And I started my journey with Time Study. It's my third company, but I live in Virginia. I'm a woman of a certain age, but I've been in tech for 25 years. And it honestly required a lot of effort just building the network just so that I could represent the pattern. So one of the things that I would do differently, given a little bit more experience, is to not spend as much time doing that. I don't think it serves us very well. I think I would have spent more time actually finding investors that could see what we were doing more quickly without so much of the training on how to represent the pattern. I honestly think that's a tax that's placed on a lot of us. We get so much mentorship and training on how to represent these patterns, but patterns are very dynamic and they're also set by a very small number of people. So we all have this small list of founders that made the exit that have the big companies, and they represent a certain characteristic of founders. So that's changing every day. And what we're doing is chasing an outdated pattern. So I would have honestly spent more time looking for investors that were along for the ride in what we were building. And I wouldn't spent as much time at all in some of the programs that we spent time in. Also, fundraising is a team effort. So I probably would have formed a team much quicker than I did.
Excellent. No, I completely agree with you on that. And the most important thing here for myself, and I believe for the entire Black community as well, is we need to build an ecosystem to educate founders, right? That was one of the biggest hurdles that I had to get over, right? I didn't have the opportunity to grow up with a rich uncle, right? Anybody in the startup ecosystem. So I literally had to re-educate myself after college, right? And I learned more during that time than I did in college. So it's all about the ecosystem, right? Educating ourselves, because we approach investors without any knowledge and we get so many no's than our counterparts do. And it's not because, and sometimes it's not because that these investors don't see us as, as worthy founders, but we are just simply not educated. And that's why it's very, very important that we build our ecosystem. A couple of things that I would change, and what you said resonates with everything that I also went through as well, is I wasted a lot of time with investors that didn't know this industry at all. I was having to educate these investors in meetings. And this was a complete waste of time, because investors, they will never tell you a direct no. They would take your meeting sometimes if they think something is interesting, right? And then they'll wait 2-3 weeks from now just to give you, yeah, not right now, right? But as founders, we appreciate quick no's. And I didn't know that in the very early stages, right? I was just approaching anybody who had or who said had money, right? Everybody says they have money. Right. And I wasted so much time, and it took my company so much more effort to get where we are than it would take, our counterparts. Right. It took us literally 5 years just to get to the beginning. Right. It would take our counterparts, right, literally just a couple of months. And it's because of the education, the knowledge that I didn't know. This is stuff that I actually had to learn while going through it. So I don't regret those hurdles, because I learned from it, right? And I'm now able to educate the community myself as well, right? So start by getting active in the local startup ecosystem. Get active, be at all these pitch competitions, meet, network with people, and you start growing from that standpoint. And also, I came into this thing as well as a solo founder. Boy, that is the hardest thing, right? That is the hardest thing being a solo founder. Again, I didn't know I had to I had to find a or technically it's not mandatory to find a co-founder, but I guarantee you it'll save you a lot of heartache as you continue to scale and grow as a company. So those are some of the things that I would definitely do or tell my past self in improving. And I hope that answers the question.
It does. So I want to echo two things. Kishau, you brought up building a team. Michael, you talked about you can't do it as a solo founder. It's always surprising to me how many founders I meet with, and you start asking me about the team, and there is no team. There's also, and this is anecdotal. I don't know if there's a data point behind this, but just in the founders I meet with, there's a much higher proportion of Black founders that aren't technical, but also lack a technical co-founder. And just from an investment perspective, that's a huge risk for the company. Like building a company by yourself is a risk, but then to go out there and not being technical and thinking like, I'm going to be able to build this tech company, I think more of us need to focus earlier on how do I find that team? How do I find those co-founders? The education piece is huge as well. This is a conversation I have a lot where I say a lot of times an investor isn't saying no because of outright racial discrimination. An investor is saying no because we don't either understand the space, we don't understand the language, the terms. And that's because we missed out on a lot of that education early on. So we have to fill those gaps as well. One of the things that I'm wondering is, are there tangible steps that funders can take to make investment and make funding more equitable? These things are always two-way streets. It's interesting when we talk about educating and Black and brown founders and underrepresented founders need to be more educated. That's only one part of the equation. The other side is what needs to happen on the funder side. Are there things that either of you can think of that funders can do to make funding more equitable?
Yeah, I think transparency is one thing that comes to mind immediately on the process. So, I've encountered funders that don't have a process or don't seem to have a process. And it's difficult to know the scope of your engagement with them. Also, what's their decision-making process? So, funders, we get questioned a lot on our roadmap and how we make decisions. I think funders should follow their own advice and actually have a process and a system for making decisions. That enables founders to actually be educated on whether or not this is an appropriate investor. Secondly, I think honestly, regarding their partners, one of the things that I look for, I do quite a bit of research on investors. I use Crunchbase a lot and also Press Hits. I look for investors that already have diversity in their own portfolios. I look for investors that have invested in companies like mine. And the reason why I do that is I don't have the luxury of time to train them on what we're doing. Also, I don't want to be the guinea pig for diversity for investors. So I actually look for investors that are already in the business of funding people like me. It saves me so much time because when they meet me, we can focus on the work and our traction. So I would say, also look at your own partners and your about pages. A lot of well-educated founders are paying attention to that as well. And then I wanted to make a quick point about the founding team. I'm also a solo founder. I do agree with that. I think if you don't have co-founders, at least have a co-founding team. But I do understand also why many founders don't have a team. I'm a solo founder, but I'm also a computer scientist. I'm very technical and I've spent years building software, so that kind of worked. So some of the discovery phase that underrepresented founders experience is that there is no discovery phase. They just jump into the fundraising. You already have to have it figured out. So you're robbed of this discovery period where you actually learn, you meet technical people and form teams. But we could talk about that later. But I think there's an environment that investors can understand a little more clearly to help them know why a solo founder would show up without a team.
Correct. I agree. I agree with that as well. And for me, again, just bouncing off you, Kishau, is transparency, right? Listen, it doesn't take 3 weeks to get a no, right? It doesn't take 4 weeks to get a no. Everything is about time. And they always, funders or, VCs, angel investors, they always come to the meetings with, how we can improve our process, right? Our pitching, building a team, right? Go-to-market strategy and so forth. But coming from their perspective as well, it also helps founders such as myself in the very early stages to understand where we stand with this with these investment opportunities with them, right? Telling us, okay, listen, this might not be the time for us to come in at this round very early on, keeps me moving, right? It keeps me looking for other opportunities. And one of the strategies that I've also learned that I actually do take advantage of, right, is in those first meetings that I have with these investors, you have to be very, very open and frank with them, right? Listen, you've heard my pitch. You like what we're doing. You love the product. You love the team. You love the service. Are you interested in moving forward? You have to be able to ask the right questions as a founder, right? Are you interested in this opportunity? Is this something you guys want to pursue? How long is your due diligence process, right? What is the average check size, right? Is this going to take you a week, 2 days? How long is this going to take? These are questions that will get investors to that yes, right? There's a book called Getting to Yes, right? I believe that's the name. I forgot. It was quite some time ago, but I recommend that book to our early stage founders as well, right? You have to know how to communicate in these meetings, right? Because these investors would take their sweet time, right? They're not in a rush to invest in you unless it's, you have a previous record of, maybe you're a serial founder, but they're not in a rush to invest in you. You have to be able to prove to them why they should invest in you or why they should invest in your company. And the truth of the matter is, these investors, they don't have a large portfolio or pipeline of good startups coming through. So if you do a great job as a founder in communicating why this is a hot opportunity, why these investors should come, you ask the right questions in the first early meetings, that leaves an impression on them, right? You might come in inexperienced with not a big team, but obviously you have a vision. But if you're able to communicate that vision clearly, you ask the right questions, it speeds things up.
I appreciate that. It's been strange for me having been a founder and now being an investor and seeing it from the inside. Kishau, to your point, often there isn't a process at a lot of venture capital funds. I mean, like that's just the reality. It's all over the map. There's funds that I know of and work with, and they have like really well-defined processes. And there's some, and it's like a couple of guys just making random decisions. So it is all over the map. And sometimes it can seem opaque because you're like, I have no idea where things are. A lot of the questions, Michael, you brought up are really, really good questions to ask. And I think, I found this in a lot of meetings I have with founders. Founders aren't asking those questions enough, and it's to their detriment. The more you can ask them those questions, the more insight you're getting into the process, the more you understand. I think also something that gets left out, and Kishau, like you've definitely touched on this, being targeted with who you're going after. I usually recommend people, like if you're raising capital, you should treat it the same way you do with going after customers. Like you should have what's your ideal persona? Who's your ideal investor, so that you're not wasting time that you don't have. Michael, I want to keep going with a thread that you kind of started, and I'm going to jump to storytelling. should the focus be on crafting the right pitch of your vision or of yourself? And Kishau, I'm going to start with you, and then we can go to.
Oh, you're going to start with me, okay?
I'm going to start with you, Kishau. Michael started the thread. Now I'm going to jump to you.
All right. I think it's both. I don't think you can choose. I think you do have to sort of tell the origin story, like before you just jump into like, this is what I'm doing. And that includes you. And it's also, it's you, who are you, and why are you the best person to be working on this? So in that regard, I think you do have to tell a story. And then what problem are you solving? That's a story. How did you discover this problem? And what do you perceive as the roadmap? Another story. But I actually think it's both. And I think that I always lead with me, because I think that's natural to me. When you meet people, you introduce yourself. And, I've seen in certain programs, sometimes people will coach you to lead with the idea and then end with the team, or start with the team and end with the idea. And what I've noticed is a pattern of, if the team is impressive enough, you lead with the team. And if not, you put it at the end. And I would actually recommend everyone to lead with themselves. Make an introduction, talk about who you are briefly, why they should be talking to you, and why you're the best person to be working on that idea. And it is an art to be able to do that in a very concise amount of time, in a way that allows investors to remember you, because they do speak with hundreds, like a lot, some of them even more. They speak to a lot of founders. And so everyone has to have an awareness of what the other person on the other side of the table is going through. So they've met like 60 people that day. How do they remember you? That's important.
Absolutely. And yes, both is very important. But in the very early stages, it's you leading it, because your idea is worth nothing. Right, in the very early stages, it's worth nothing, right? You can have valuation of 5 million. Yeah, those are just numbers. Those are just, you're throwing those out. But you need to be able to convince them this is going to grow into a big idea. Tell them why you are the best person to execute on this idea. So I'm alumni of the Comcast NBC Universal Lift Labs Accelerator, powered by Techstars. And one of the things that we learned in there are 3 things as a founder that you should be focusing on. Especially in the very early stages. Number 1 is vision, right? You should be able to communicate that vision, craft that story to be able to articulate when you speak with investors or anybody that's interested in hearing about your company, and make it believable, right? You have to be passionate about the idea that you're creating. Number 2 is you have to be able to manage and grow the team, right? Because that vision will lead to you getting followers, right? To you getting the co-founder because he believes in that vision, because you've sold it well. So number 2 is building the team. And then number 3 is managing capital, right? This goes to raising the capital, and also obviously managing the finances within the company. So obviously your runway when you're gonna run out of money. So those are the 3 things. So in the early stages, focus on how can I tell this idea on why this is going to be so great and why I'm the right person to do it. Focus on that. And then at the later stages of your growth, right? We're talking series B, C, and onward, right? Then it becomes more about the numbers, right? What has your company done in the early stages to back those numbers up?
Yeah, no, I really like both of those. Michael, so the point that you're raising is actually a really good point. And, my co-managing partner and I have had this conversation a lot. At the early stage, the investment is really in the people. It's not in the idea. It's not in the product. At the early stage, for all I know, whatever product you think you have could not exist or go away. The question I'm asking is, are these the right people to invest in? And when people are leading with the company or the product or the idea, that's not the thing that I'm betting on. That's not the thing that I'm investing in. I think more people need to really be cognizant of that. It's about them. It's about the team, and then just the art of storytelling. Because storytelling is there's an art to it. And how do you tell a story? And then how do you tell a story that's connected to numbers? being able to tell that story of like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever, as I think you were saying, Michael, like, this is going to, like, you have to invest in this, this is, if you don't invest in this, you are missing out on the next biggest opportunity. And this is how I can do it. And this is what the numbers say. And this is what the growth says. Because sometimes, I'll meet with someone who's a really good storyteller, but the story is disconnected from the numbers. And how do you tie the two together and say, like, this is the greatest thing ever? I like that, Michael. I like that.
All right. I'm still trying to work on connecting the two together.
That makes two of us, Michael.
Takes practice, I guess.
It does.
Yeah.
So, Michael, word is you're famous now. You did a docuseries.
Correct.
So, outside of asking you for an autograph, do you want to? Can you talk a little bit about the docuseries and how that has impacted your company?
Yeah, for sure. I was honored and blessed to be a part of an exclusive documentary by Comcast NBC Universal, which was produced, executive produced by Lift Labs, and it's called Founding in Color, and it follows the journey of entrepreneurs of color, the genesis of their ideas, the struggle of raising capital, and just who these founders are. And again, I was just I was very blessed to share the screen with all these incredible founders. And it premiered on X1 and also is now available on Peacock as of, I believe, Friday. I lost track of my dates, but this was an incredible opportunity because it goes again to the number one thing as a founder that you're supposed to do is create that vision and be able to communicate that vision. And this opportunity gave me a platform to be able to share the vision of AfroLandTV and a little bit about myself on why it's important for Africans and Black people to control the narrative, but most importantly, also controlling the distribution channels, right? You can control the narrative all you want to, but if you're having to go out there and to beg people to play your movie, to play your show, right? That's another thing. But now controlling those channels, and it's very, very few Black executives that control TV networks. And we're just, again, blessed to be in this opportunity to be sharing our vision, to be changing the narrative of a continent. A lot of people do not understand this, but the African film industry is the second biggest film industry in the world when it comes to content getting produced on the continent. But less than 1% of those stories make it outside of Africa, right? You can go anywhere else in the world. You can find Hollywood movies, you can find Asian movies, you can find Bollywood, which is India, and obviously European movies. But where's the African stories? We have so many rich stories from the continent that don't travel outside of the continent, right? And we're starting to see traction from Black Panther. You have Lion King, Afrobeat music is another thing standing up. So we're taking the bull by the horns and bringing African stories to the global stage. And this series did a very, very awesome job in making sure that our story is heard. So no, I'm not famous, but I do appreciate the platform to be able to share our story.
Oh, good. I like it. There's a thread I want to stay on. You were talking about the wealth of movies on the continent that aren't getting out. And I just want to ask both of you about the role that international funding opportunities play or can play in raising capital for underrepresented founders. And this is open to anyone who wants to jump in.
I think it's important to explore it for certain, but I also think that it could introduce some complexity for an early stage company. So I guess the timing of when you explore that is important, depending on the type of investor, the type of international investor. But we've looked into it.
Correct, and for us, we've had multiple VCs outside of the United States interested specifically on the African continent and some in the European market as well. The problem is their governance of investment is different from the United States, right? And we've had investors commit to us, hey, we love this idea, we want to invest, only to come out with legalities not, meeting eye to eye. So that was a problem. So I believe in the early stages, right, it's very important to focus here in the US, right, because it keeps things moving. The only thing that early stage founders have in terms of competitive advantage in the marketplace is speed, right? We're able to execute things faster than the big corporations. And if you start looking and exploring at investments outside of the United States, that's definitely going to slow things down. The opportunity is there, right? But it's just going to take much longer. I'm looking for angels. I'm looking for VCs that can get the money in the bank in a month, right? I have a payroll to meet. I have a team that needs to execute, right? We need to keep things moving and do things faster. So definitely international opportunities are there. Wait until the later stages, right? Series A, you can start engaging with investors, investors internationally, but just wait until you're much more stabilized. You have your team, and then once the opportunity comes, you're raising the later rounds, then you can go for those.
Good stuff. Thank you. When we talk about corporations and corporate partners, what role can corporate partners play in the investment and fundraising journey of underrepresented founders? And this is open to whoever wants to answer.
I mean, it's an ecosystem, running a startup. So, we talk a lot about fundraising, but that's, a piece of a big puzzle. So, there's press, there's customers, there's a whole pie. So I think from a corporate partnership standpoint, really exploring how not only to fund companies so that they have the capital to realize the stages in their roadmap, but also how do we promote what they're working on. That's one of the things I'd like to see more of. Is I would love to see more stories of underrepresented founders in their work, not because they're underrepresented, but because it's a great idea. And I find that a lot of these stories about us are all crafted around the fact that we're underrepresented, not because of the quality of the work. And those things actually really do matter. They matter a lot when you're recruiting staff. It matters when we're interviewing talent. They pay attention to the news. So that narrative around the journey of an underrepresented founder is really important because people that you may employ are looking at it. I've had potential employees ask me, is it difficult for me as a Black woman to raise funding? That's part of their criteria as to whether they want to connect with us and work with us. So we really do need to paint more of a holistic picture of a day in the life of a founder. We're going to experience the same sort of problems that any other founder is going to experience. And a lot of us are doing some really good work. So amplifying the work, but also connecting founders to partners, other partners that may be aligned. They could be technology partners, sales channel partnerships, but in a really meaningful way that actually moves the business forward.
Correct. And like she said, it's an ecosystem, and corporate partnerships are very, very important for early stage companies, especially Black founders as well. And we are a part of that, right? With Comcast NBC Universal being a partner of ours. Number one, it's so much harder for Black founders to get into the room, right, with corporations, right? CVC, corporate venture capital funds, or just in developing partners, and that was one of the greatest things that the accelerator provided for us. Was it gave us access to go into the doors, right? We just need an opportunity for doors to be open for us to get in there and to be able to pitch some of these corporations, and that's what the accelerator provided for us. Because through this corporate partnership, we were able to, number one, get some of our biggest distribution deals reaching millions of people, right? It took AfroLandTV from, very few monthly active users, hundreds of hours watched, to over double, to hundreds of thousands of users, to millions of hours to watch, right? Through those corporate partnerships. And the reason I say this, right? Corporations need to start divisions or open divisions for Black founders, right? It's so hard for us to get into those meetings, right? Open these divisions up, look for the promising startups, right? By founders of color, underrepresented founders as well. Give us opportunities to get into the door to pitch, right? I think that'll be so great because in today's age, we simply cannot grow companies just by us doing it by ourselves. We need backup, we need help, we need an ecosystem, we need a village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. That's one of my favorite African proverbs. They need to open these doors for us to be able to pitch, right? We're not asking for handouts, but just give us an opportunity to get in there and pitch. And that's what I was able to do. The opportunity was opened and I sold it, right? And they believed in the vision, and this opened so many doors, not only for myself, but my employees. My employees get to see how it is to operate a startup. And again, this is part of the education system as well, because now they're learning how you partner with corporations and how things operate within the startup ecosystem. So corporate partnerships, incredibly valuable. Corporations, please open those doors, start a division, look for these underrepresented founders, and just open the door for them to at least come in and pitch why they think that you are a good partner for them. And then lastly, for the founders, do your homework on who the corporate partner you are looking for does. Right, you have to know how to navigate, and that will speak heavy of your leadership once the doors open. When I got into Comcast, I was able to tell them, hey, we want to be on Peacock. You guys own Fandango, Voodoo, right? More distribution channels. I was able to literally go in there and say, you guys are coming out with smart TVs, right? In the UK, you guys own Sky, right? Which the UK is a big demographic for Africans in the diaspora. Understand who you're going in the room with, and you'll be much better to sell it.
I like it. Thank you, Michael. I think we have time for maybe one or two questions. So one I'm going to throw out, have either of you had to walk away from funding?
Yes, a few times, mostly around alignment or stage. So there've been a few times where funding was offered, but we were not aligned very well with the investor. And I do a lot of research. I talk to founders a lot because I think it matters. So I'm always talking to founders that have been where I'm trying to go. And particularly if they've been funded by an investor that's offering a check, I speak to them. And, if I'm getting critical stories around their experience post-funding, I may second guess whether or not it's a good check for us, depending on what stage we're in. But yes, a few times, just based on where we were as a company and what our needs were, and where that investor was as an investor and what their ultimate goals were.
Yes, same here. We've had misalignments in the vision and obviously the execution and the speed to scale. It's very, very important because, in these very early stages, you want all the money that can come in. And sometimes we don't have the luxury of nitpicking who our investors are, but be very strategic and have a good team of lawyers, right? And listen, you don't have to find, if you're in the very early stages, you can find lawyers without having to pay them upfront, right? They can do, I forgot the terminology on them, but you can pay them later.
Deferred comp.
Exactly. Right. So make sure you have a good partner in terms of legalities, lawyers that can interpret term sheets better than you can. Right. Understand that these investors, they do this every day. They know how to manipulate and sound complex, and you get lost and you sign something that sells the that takes majority of the company away. So make sure you have a good legal team. And make sure that you guys align, right? Don't just go out there. If somebody's willing to invest in it, somebody else will be willing to invest in it later, or maybe at the same time as well. So don't sell your soul.
Also, there are cascading implications of accepting a check that's not aligned well with your company. So, it may be good cash in the short term, but there's actually a real impact to your company. It could take you away from your roadmap. It could complicate how you spend your time as a founder. I could go on, but you should definitely be discerning.
And then the reporting, they can ask for it at any time. That can slow down you executing. There's so many things that you need a good legal team to help you interpret that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Completely agree. Are there 1 to 3 very tactical lessons that you would want to leave people with today?
I have 3. One is to develop a way to increase your rate of learning, to learn quicker. So the way that I do that is, again, I speak with people that have been where I'm trying to go next. And also I do a lot of research using Crunchbase. Is honestly is worth the subscription fee to get the information that you need about investors. Number 2 is be very specific and clear about your company's needs and where you are in your roadmap. So how much money will it take you to get to the next step? Be super specific about that, because again, it'll help you narrow the pool of investors that you need to speak with. And then systems. Fundraising is really a workflow. So you'll get a lot of no's, and the goal really is to focus on the ones that seem to be strong, compelling yeses. Maybes are the worst. People that leave you on the hook. You know, you don't want to spend a lot of time there, but your goal is to get a yes or no, and you want to like work it like a sales pipeline. And the way that you develop that system, again, is connecting to a founder that has already mastered the fundraising at the stage that you're in, and see if they can give you templates and some resources to help you along the way.
Correct. Completely agree with that as well. For me, number 1 is the ecosystem, right? Get connected within the ecosystem. Understand how startups work, be at these seminars, be at the different classes, pitch competitions, right? You want to get acclimated to what it means to be a founder, right? Traveling to places and so forth. Networking, because you never know who your next investor is, right? Actually, most of our investors were not investors that I pitched, right? They just came on later on, but we had developed a relationship over time. Number 2 is in the very early stages, do not focus on revenue, right? Revenue does not show that your company is going to be successful. Focus on users, right? Grow that user base, right? We didn't start, we didn't open up revenues until literally 2 months ago. Right. We've been in the market for quite some time now, but we didn't open it up until 2 months ago because we wanted to build and understand our audience. Because if you're able to understand that audience and grow it, then you can monetize it. It's not about revenues in the early stages. VCs, investors, they're not looking for revenues at the very early stages. So focus on users and then shift over to revenues at the later stage. The next thing is mental health. Keep yourself right. Right. This is tough. This is really, really tough. This is the hardest thing that I've done in my life. Make sure that you have escapes. Take some time away. Listen, what you see on TV, what you hear about working 80 hours a week, no sleep, no this. Listen, that's not for everybody. Right. Operate at your pace. Understand your pacing, because you're then much more effective that way. Take breaks. You need yourself to be mentally solid for you to execute at the highest capacity. So those are the 3 things I would say.
That was great. I really appreciate that from both of you. I think we are coming up on time. I really want to thank the 2 of you. This has been an amazing conversation. Kishau, I think some of the things you brought up, it's not a like 1 o'clock in the afternoon conversation. It's a 5:30 with grace.
That's my speed. I'm the happy hour person.
Exactly.
I appreciate all of the wealth of knowledge and information that the 2 of you had to offer. I also want to thank the audience and our organizers. We wouldn't be here without Comcast, NBC Universal, Lift Labs. I'm going to thank Startup Grind as well. And that was a wonderful conversation. So thank you.